In this video, I'll explain how I turned this Excel sheet with dry data into a colorful infographic and how you can also create beautiful posters without the need for you to draw anything. I'll show you how you can easily use Midjourney to create these kinds of posters and which rules you can apply to always get a nice result and avoid making a vacuum cleaner look like this. The only thing you need is a bit of time and maybe $10 if you also want to use Midjourney, but apart from that you don't need any experience in graphic design. To properly explain how to make a poster like this, I'll take you along in my creative process. I made quite a few mistakes and wasted days of time, so I will summarize what works so you don't have to waste time. Let's start at the beginning. It's April 2023 and I'm creating a video about household electricity use, and I've been measuring the consumption of all appliances in my home. In short, a lot of data. But a lot of numbers in a video is too much for many people. That's why I think it would be fun to create a nice poster, even though I've never done so before. For that, I have a rough idea. Colorful, and then a kind of distance table with illustrations of the devices where you can see how the consumption compares to each other. I also decided to use the paper format A2. With a specific choice for a distance table, I already made a mistake that is going to cost me a lot of time, and I will tell you in a minute how you can avoid that by answering a few simple questions. But I don't know that yet, so I decided to just make something and adjust while I'm at it. So I'm starting with Midjourney. I decided that I'd like to use that. Midjourney is what's called a generative AI, an image generator where you can describe something with words and then you get an image that is an interpretation of what you typed. I had experimented with it before, but never to create something really specific, and that turned out to be quite a challenge. So how do you use Midjourney? In the beginning, it's smart to constantly try something different until you get results similar to what you want. There are many examples online of what you can type in to get certain results, so experiment with that. I work in English, but you can also try other languages. You can also give Midjourney examples of what you want to generate by uploading images. Sometimes Midjourney really doesn't understand what you mean. I encounter this, for example, when I try to generate a colorful distance table. Of course, table has multiple meanings in English, and combined with colorful, this is what I get. Also, it's too specific, and really specific things are still hard for Midjourney to generate, but since that distance table is still my plan, I will prepare all my data in the form of a distance table in Excel. The next day I sketch out the idea on my iPad to see if it works, and it's not exactly fantastic. I'm not really happy with the sketch, but I also try it out in Illustrator. After all, I think I'm gonna end up making the poster in that program. So I built a layout in Illustrator based on the sketch. Unfortunately, I'm a complete Illustrator noob, so it's slow and frustrating. I have to look up how to do something all the time via Google, YouTube videos, ChatGPT. When the frustration becomes too much, I return to Midjourney to generate some more images of appliances. I had actually come up with a whole list of icons for the table, and it is way more fun to generate them. Just look at these beautiful creations. As far as I'm concerned, these icons don't have to be perfect. It's okay if they have some weird things going on, that's just funny. But some images take quite a few tries before it really looks like what it's supposed to represent. For example, this coffee maker, which all the time is surrounded by stuff. Or the vacuum cleaner. These kinds of results can't really be avoided, but with small adjustments and experimentation you'll eventually get there. What I do want is for them to be in a somewhat similar style. So how do you create a series of images in the same style? To get a consistent style, I partly reuse the same description. For example, I always ask for a plain background and an isometric perspective. Midjourney can't yet generate images with transparent backgrounds, so how do you use these images in a poster? Using Photoshop, you can easily remove the backgrounds. If you don't have Photoshop, there are all kinds of free tools for this on the internet, such as Canva or remove.bg. I remove the background in Photoshop and make some minor adjustments here and there. Now that I have a whole bunch of clean icons, I can add them to the poster in Illustrator. Meanwhile, it's day 4 of working on this poster, and now that I see this, I'm not at all excited about where this is going. So it's time for a moment of reflection. What conclusions can I draw? It's obvious that Midjourney generates beautiful images, but I don't manage to incorporate my original plan, with a lot of numbers, into a poster in an attractive way. The table has far too many data points, and this comes at the expense of effectiveness and attractiveness. No matter how beautiful the poster is, such a table will still be boring and dry. It should also be inviting and draw your attention. And this is where I went wrong in the beginning. By not doing a visual exploration first and seeing what excites me, I blinded myself with my own idea. I basically just recreated the Excel sheet, but with colors and pictures. But more importantly, I should have thought about who I'm making this poster for, and what it is that I want to convey, and how to combine that. And even though I'm a nerd, not everybody is interested in a plethora of numbers. A visually appealing graphic can be much more effective. So to avoid going down the wrong path early on and wasting a lot of time, ask yourself these questions before you start. Who is your target audience? What fits that target audience? What message do you want to convey? And get inspired. Explore what visually appeals to you and fits the target audience and message. You don't necessarily have to create a mood board, but if you like to do that, go ahead. I hadn't truly asked myself any of these questions, resulting in this, and this. Now that I've come up with this roadmap, I'm starting over, but this time with the first step, deciding who I'm making it for. In my case, that's a broad audience. Let's say everyone. The second question is, what fits that audience? Something that is nice looking and really draws the attention, but without showing too many figures at once. Interesting facts on the one hand and some numbers for the nerds on the other. Then question 3, what message do I want to convey? Mainly the ratios between electrical appliances. In addition, what the real large consumers are, and then some interesting, remarkable facts. And step 4, getting inspired. Now that I'm using Midjourney to explore concepts for posters, I'm getting super excited about what Midjourney can generate. It looks really pretty. And if I'm honest, Midjourney is just way better than me at building beautiful compositions and using color schemes. On the other hand, oftentimes there are weird things going on with the images, and a whole poster is a bit different than some simple icons. So I have a new idea. What if I use Midjourney to generate the rough layout of the poster instead of building it myself from scratch? Then I can manipulate the base in Photoshop and add my own elements like the icons I already generated. By the way, you don't have to use Photoshop. You can also use GIMP, which is free and mostly has the same functions. With the answers to the 3 questions in my head and inspired by Midjourney, I decided to make an infographic. To do this, you at least need to make a list of the things that you want to put on the poster, for instance text or images. In my case, I'm going through my post and the script of the video about electricity again to select the most important and interesting things to put on the poster. I'm now making an outline of how to show the connections in an orderly way, and I don't succeed in one try, so I'll do it multiple times, and every time it's a bit better. Here I'm not concerned with the location on the poster, but with what exactly will be on the poster and how I want to visually connect them. This is a step you don't have to do, but it helps to fit everything in place. I import the mind map into Photoshop so I can also type out some bits of text already. In addition, it is useful for reference, and I can immediately cross off what I've done. Using Photoshop or GIMP might sound daunting, but really there are only 4 things you need to be able to do to build a poster like this. And I'll get to those in a minute, but first I need a base to build on. So how do you generate a good base in Midjourney? By default, Midjourney generates square images. If you want a different aspect ratio, you can do so by typing --AR or --aspect after your prompt in Midjourney. I use 5:7 for my vertical poster because that's about the ratio of the A2 paper format. It's nice if the base already has a few elements that you like to have on the poster. Don't assume you'll get exactly what you want, but with experimentation you're going to get some great results anyway. I want the base to have a house and a light bulb at the very least, along with sufficient space and connections for things I'm going to add myself. Once you have a good base image, it's important to increase the resolution by upscaling. This way you can also get a sharp print even with a bigger size. And there are all kinds of tools for upscaling, even free tools online, such as Waifu2X. Personally, I use Chainer, which is a little less simple, but gives even better results. I'm upscaling a few images because I expect to transplant some elements from one image to another. In the end, I choose this one as the base for my poster. And then it's time to build the poster. So in my case, adding images and text and adjusting the lines to show all the right connections. In fact, I only do a few things over and over again. So what do you need to be able to do in Photoshop or GIMP to build a poster like this? The first thing you need to be able to do is create space. The base image probably contains many things you don't need. To remove those parts, you can use content-aware fill. You make a selection that you want to fill and indicate with the green marker which parts should serve as an example. If necessary, you can then touch up the edges with the smudge tool. But if you put an image or text on that spot, it is often not even necessary because you don't see the ugly edges anymore. You can also use the clone stamp tool for manual work. The second thing you should be able to do is move or add elements. If you want to move something in the image somewhere else, you can select it and copy it to a new layer with Ctrl-J and then erase the parts you don't need. And if you want to make a more precise selection, you can also use the color range selection tool. With it, you select certain colors. For example, I use it to isolate the line from this graph. Third is fitting elements into the color scheme. When you add new elements, like I'm doing with the icons, they often don't quite fit the color scheme of the base. So then you can use a color filter to adjust the image so that it fits well into the color scheme of the poster. Just make sure you have only selected the parts that you want to change the color of, for example with the color range selection tool. Otherwise, the color filter will change other parts as well. And then you have fitting elements into the style. In my poster, many existing elements like the lamp or the house already have a shadow. So I want to mimic that by giving new elements a shadow as well. Usually the drop shadow effect is perfect for this. You just play with the sliders a bit to get it right. You can also recreate shadows with a brush if needed. Select the color of a piece of shadow with the eyedropper tool, hotkey I, and select a soft brush. And then on a new layer, you create some shadow where you want it, and then play with the opacity. This doesn't need to be precise, but it makes a big difference. So here's an example from start to finish. I select this weird round thing and use content-aware fill to get rid of it. Then I insert my own image, and with a color filter I match the color to the poster. Since I changed the color of the whole car, I select the whites with a color range select and make them brighter again with another color filter. Then I add a drop shadow that matches the style of the poster. Finally, I clean up the background with the clone stamp tool. These skills will get you a long way, but I also have some design tips to make sure you get the best result possible. Tip 1. Don't use more than 2 fonts. You can vary the weight and the size, but using more than 2 fonts gets messy quickly. And if the AI has generated text in your poster, you get bonus points if you can find a font that looks like it. I did so with the title, for example, by choosing a font that looks like it and then stretching it out a bit for a perfect fit. Tip 2. Make sure everything fits into the color palette. For example, by using the eyedropper tool to select a color from the poster when you add new elements like text. And don't forget to use a color filter when inserting new images to create a better match. Tip 3. Check the composition. The composition of generated posters is often quite good, but if you add or remove things yourself, the composition changes. What helped me the most was taking some distance from the poster, in time or in space, so sleep on it or look at your work from a distance to see if the composition gets too cluttered, or that it becomes unbalanced because of crowded or empty spaces. Follow your gut feeling. What you can of course also do is ask others for feedback. They really have a different perspective, and this can provide valuable feedback. Meanwhile, I almost finished my poster. To wrap up, I add the sources and a QR code that links to the corresponding video. And this is the final poster. If you compare it to the base image, you will see that I didn't really change the composition. And if you compare it to my mind map, you'll see that everything is included, with all the facts and connections I found to be interesting and wanted to share. You can use AI like Midjourney for much more than creating posters. You can also use it to create images for videos. An example of that you can find in my video on household electricity use, and it's got English subtitles as well, so check that one out too.